Hello, everybody. Welcome to Godly Wisdom for Daily Living. Today, our topic is going to be about living in the anxiety-free zone. Have you ever wondered how many of life's events a person can truly control? Starting at birth, we didn't have the choice as to what race we would be born into. We didn't have a choice as to what social strata or nationality or physical condition we would be born into. We just grew up in these conditions and did the best we could. Some didn't do too well. Some failed miserably. Ironically, some who were born into privilege didn't realize the privilege they were born into, and thus they simply squandered away their blessings. While a few who were born with overwhelming disadvantages were able to escape their challenging predicament because of, I would say, divine intervention. God, in his unsearchable ways, provided some unfortunate people with the wisdom to make the right choices in life. Through hard, persistent, quality work that associated them with honorable character, they won to their side certain successful and honorable leaders who could spot talent and gave these people a break. The world is full of stories of people who made wise and right choices that would catapult them to success. But there is a common denominator that I see among the successful, and that is related to the application of biblical principles. Most people who become successful are so because they have applied wise and moral decisions consistent with biblical teaching. Meaning they are successful because God is faithful to implement the rewards of people who obey his principles. Whether they acknowledge God as the source of the principles or they have inadvertently distilled these wise principles through education and or experience. Which raises the question as to how much in a person's life does he or she truly control. The principle is to do the best we can in the circumstance life brings upon us. But there are forces beyond our control that can easily derail all our efforts to improve our lot and to solve our challenges. For example, we have very little we can do if for some reason you or I are struck with an incurable or terminal illness. We have no control over the global economy, nor have we control over the peace and order of other nations that can affect the balance of power in our region of the world. Here's a list of some global movements that no one country or individual can control. How about a more deadly variant that could cause another pandemic and wreak economic havoc on a global scale? How about civil war breaking out in countries where citizens are pulled apart by corruption and violence? Then there is always the lingering possibility of a third world war between Western democracies against certain fascist-controlled countries intent on global domination. How about a sudden outburst of unprecedented natural disasters, such as tsunamis, drought that leads to famine, large-scale volcanic eruptions, storms and flooding, all these combined that could result in a global economic downturn and food shortage. These are just some of the global movements that can cause anxiety because of men's inability to control such disastrous developments. However, such anxiety is not the only option. Believers can choose to arrive at the conclusion that the world and the universe are under the control of the Almighty God, who patiently withholds his judgment upon a world that is growing more and more hostile towards his righteous ways and his followers. We come to this conclusion through study and research of the Bible in relation to supportive evidence revealed in history, archaeology, cosmology, and simply practical reality. God can keep our hearts and our minds in perfect peace when our thoughts are fixed on Him. Believers in the Almighty God have experienced God's faithful protection, provision, and guidance because they sought first God's kingdom and His righteous ways. The psalmist communicates based on his experience his true source of assurance and comfort in the midst of life's challenges. Psalm 127 verse 1 and 2 says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil. For He, God, gives to His beloved sleep." The psalmist does not negate the importance of work and personal responsibility. Rather, he is emphasizing the greater importance which is for weak and short-sighted men and women to live lives in conformity to the perfect and righteous design of God. To do otherwise is to suffer the misery of moral perversion and depravity that leads to violence and eventual self-destruction. So let us take this psalm seriously if we are to live in the blessings, favor, and anxiety-free zone of the Almighty God. If you have been blessed today, I'd like to encourage you to please press like and then share. And if you're not a subscriber, would you kindly subscribe so that this ministry can continue to grow in its influence? I would like to encourage you to look up to God. Read the Bible, because in the Bible we discover the truth of God, the power of God, the love of God, and the salvation of God through His Son, Jesus Christ. You have a wonderful day.